Hello and welcome to today's video in which we're going to make a lovely apricot jam. My name's Yvonne and I'm going to lead you through this. Hopefully you will end up with some lovely jam as well. So first of all, we've got some apricots. I'm using 1.5 kilos, a lemon, 800 grams of sugar and a packet of pectin. I buy this pectin in France, but if you haven't got that, failing that, just use pectin sugar. Now the reason I'm not using the normal quantities of sugar to apricots is because, first of all, once I take the stones out, they will weigh considerably less, and also I tend to like my jam a bit on the sharp side, so the pectin and the lemon will help it to set and to sharpen it up as well. Now in this bowl there's obviously not 1.5 kilos, there's only half a kilo, but I do have 3 punnets. Okay, don't have your fruit too ripe because it'll make it more difficult to set, and apricots are not the easiest of fruits to set as a jam, so you do need to be careful with that. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the apricots up into quarters, ready to proceed. Apricots are quite easy to stone. You just cut them along the line that you see there, then quarter, and they come out quite easily. If you're using plums, you probably know that they're an absolute pain in the neck to stone. Down there, and just carry on until you've done them all. One thing you do need to be aware of is that sometimes the apricots will have this little bit of branch. Make sure that doesn't end up in your jam. If it does, don't worry, just take it out afterwards. The apricots have all been stoned. I've put the lemon juice in the pan with the apricots, and now I'm going to switch it on and let it come slowly to the boil. Stirring occasionally with a trusty wooden spoon, cracked from years of use, but you don't want it to boil too quickly, otherwise you might find it's going to burn in places. So a medium to low heat and let it gently come to the boil. This kind of jam shouldn't give you many pieces. It's a smooth jam rather than a chunky jam, so it's a jam rather than a preserve. If you want to make a preserve, I have got another video on making a preserve rather than the jam. It's a much longer, more laborious process. At this point, when some of the fruit has started to soften, I'm going to add about half of the sugar, so around about the 400 to 500 grams. And then I'm going to mix it in and allow it to start melting. And then I'll be back. Right, when the jam gets to this nice rolling boil, what we're actually going to do is give it a stir and then have a look at the fruit and see if it's softened enough, because there's no point in trying to add the sugar and everything else if you've still got quite raw fruit in the middle. And the way to do that and be positive is to switch it off, set it aside, leave it for about half an hour, and it'll continue to soften slowly, and then we can bring it back to the boil and add the sugar and the pectin. Right, now after the jam has been left to cool a little bit, you'll probably see that if I do this, there's already a little bit of jellifying. Even though we haven't put much sugar in, it's already starting to jellify. Now I'm going to bring it back to the boil, and we're then going to add the rest of the sugar and the pectin powder, or you could add, if you can't get that, just add your ordinary jam sugar, which has got pectin in it already. and that'll help it to set. So you can probably hear that the jam is boiling up on the side. That's just that's a bit of apricot juice where I put the wooden spoon to stand. I'm going to mix in the pectin powder. Please don't use that awful pectin, liquid pectin, because it's absolutely disgusting. This is it's made from a fruit derivative. Now you do need to mix the two together to avoid it from going clumpy when it goes into the jam. Back to our jam, which you can now see is the lovely rolling boil, and then I'm just going to add all of that sugar in one go and now mix it in. Yeah, and the pectin has gone into the jam without any lumps. Now you bring it back to the boil and boil for between 4 and 5 minutes before you start testing for a set. Right, from this point on, when you've got a nice rolling boil, we're going to time for 4 to 5 minutes, and then we're going to test for a setting point. Now, if you have a sugar thermometer, you can use that as well, and you will see on the side that it does actually say jam, and it's 105 degrees Fahrenheit. No idea what it is in centigrade, so don't even ask me. I live in the UK and we work in metric. And when it gets to that point, it will set. Now, in order to get to that point, you need a good rolling boil on your jam. There's no namby-pamby simmering going on here. It has to be a rolling boil. If you simmer, it will take forever. You'll have an awful colour on your fruit because it'll go sort of brownish and caramelly and nasty. So you want to keep on going until you've reached that magic 105. And then it'll be ready. Yay, look, 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 look. We're just about there. And it's not quite there, is it? What do you think, Jack?
It's still on.
It's still on, yeah.
Can I mix it?
No, not with a teaspoon. You're going to burn yourself.
Wood.
No, not even the wooden spoon, Jack. Stay away now. It's boiling hot. You can really, really hurt yourself with boiling hot jam. It'll stick to your skin and it'll hurt you. I put the timer on as well, and the timer is going to go off.
I'm going to use the wooden spoon.
You're going to use the wooden spoon, yeah? Mm.
Wait, are you going to use it?
Yes. There we are, the timer's going, and I would say, there we are, we're on 105. Off. To test for setting, all we're going to do is take a plate, pour some on the plate, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge, and I'll be back when it's cooled down to do the wrinkle test to see if it's set. Right, the jam has been in the fridge for about 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll see that there's a good wrinkle on it. So that tells you that it's good enough to set. The other way of knowing that there's a good set on the jam is if you actually move the jam across the pan like that, you'll also see that it's starting to thicken. And some people also say that if you hold the spoon like that and the drips remain on the spoon, you see, that's a piece of fruit, but the jam itself is staying on the spoon, that it'll be ready. Now I'm going to give it a stir because I don't want all the apricots to end up in one place. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going going to bottle it, and in order to bottle it I'm going to use a jug, which I'm going to, well used jug this. Dishwashers make a mess of plastic jugs, just beware. I'm going to put the mixture in here, and then I'm going to pour it into the sterilised jars. Now, pouring the jam into the jars is the best way that I've found so far of getting the jam into the jar without having all the drips around the sides. Now, my jam funnels, you've all got a jug, and all you need to do is pour it in. Right, till you get somewhere near the top. You don't want too much. You don't want too much jam at the top, because you don't want it to. You want to have a sort of fairly tight seal. Here's another one. Right. Put the lid on. Turn it upside down. Now what that'll do is it'll form a nice tight seal, vacuum seal, and your jam will always set without any trouble, and you won't have to worry about having mould on the top of your jam. I have an eclectic collection of jam jars. Quite honestly, I don't see the point in going out and buying jars. If you've got them in the house, use what you've got, because jam jars are expensive, and we've all got lots and lots of jars in the house, which is why we end up with a whole selection of jars. Okay. The best part of apricot jam is eating it in the garden once it's made. Is that good, Jack? How good is it? Is it so good you can't talk? Enjoy.